Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Bayport Blue Point School District March 28th, 2003 business meeting. Please rise and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight we are joined by 6 of our board members. Our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Timothy Harney, our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Dr. Theodore Fulton, our Interim Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, Mr. Louis Frontario, our District Clerk, Ms. Suzanne Benetti, and our student representative, Ms. Emily Denton. There will be 2 opportunities for the community to participate. The first will be when the board takes up its agenda, and the second will be the disposition of all agenda items at the end. A speaker that is not a resident of the school district will require a majority vote of the Board of Education. Time allotted to each speaker should not exceed 3 minutes. All Board of Education meetings are live streamed and posted after the meeting on the district website. Please follow us on Twitter at BBP Schools or follow Dr. Harney at BBP SUPT for district-wide updates and news. At this time, I would like to open the meeting to community old and new business. Not hearing anything, at this time, I'd like to turn over the meeting to Dr. Harney, Superintendent of Schools, for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Welcome to everyone here tonight. Welcome to our students and our parents. It's great to see so many of you here tonight. We do have a couple of presentations tonight, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this down to Mrs. Denton. She'll give her report, and then we'll be able to congratulate our students and recognize them, and then we'll move to our presentation. So with that, I'll give it to Ms. Denton.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me again. I'd like to congratulate all of the performers at the CB's concert and fundraiser last Friday night. Everyone that performed was incredible, and I was blown away by all of the young talent. Additionally, I'd like to congratulate all of these senior scholarship recipients. As for the high school, this morning, the high school hosted the annual Spring College Fair. Students in grades 10 and 11 had a chance to speak with a multitude of college representatives. This Friday, March 31st, is the final day of the 3rd marking period, and report cards will be posted to Parent Portal on the afternoon of Wednesday, April 5th. Friday is also BBP's Connect Stay Awake-a-thon. Students will compete with their teams in a multitude of activities from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. There will be pizza and ice cream available, as well as prizes provided to the winning teams. This week is Spirit Week. Monday was Dress Like a Teacher Day, and today was Adam Sandler Day. Wednesday is Class Color Day, Thursday is Tacky Tourist Day, and Friday is BBP Colors. The BBP and Safewell Booster Clubs are joining together on April 22nd with a softball game to raise money for Lainey McGowan, who has recently been diagnosed with Dravet syndrome. As for the middle school spring sports season began yesterday. Good luck to all of our athletes as they take the field. There will be a 5th and 6th grade parent and guardian information night for all current BBP 5th graders who will be entering the middle school for the 23-24 school year on Monday, April 17th at 7 p.m. in the JWI auditorium. The goal is to give parents and guardians a view of what middle school life is like. There will be PTA members and many club advisors in attendance. As for Blue Point Elementary finished their Pick a Reading Partner Week and is waiting to hear on the students' total number of reading minutes. Students participated in a book prom, bedtime story time, dress up as your favorite book character, and more to celebrate the week and get students excited to read. Blue Point Elementary set up a fundraiser with Square One Art, having students create an individual tile to be part of a school-wide mural. Students are asked to draw a picture of what makes Blue Point Elementary School so special. Once it is hung up, their artwork will be part of the school for years to come. As for Sylvan Avenue Elementary, continuing with the theme of kindness, the students raised nearly $4,000 for the American Heart Association in February. In March, UPK through grade 5 students participated in the cereal challenge. 308 boxes of cereal were collected and set up in the gym so that students could watch the chain reaction of kindness. The cereal was donated to 3 local food pantries. Sylvan Avenue thanks Stop and Shop of East Northport for their generous donation of 50 boxes of cereal. In the month of April, Sylvan Avenue students, faculty, and staff will focus on being kind to the earth. A week-long celebration will occur when we return from spring break, April 17th through the 24th. Dr. Harney's Superintendent Student Council, comprised of 4th and 5th graders, pushed into kindergarten classrooms last week. In KB, Student Council members helped students learn about the water cycle. In KE, kindergartners and the Student Council members made leprechaun traps. And in KV, the student worked on a Roy G. Biv Colors of the Rainbow project. Kindergartners learned about marine reptiles and their land-based buddies through an Arts and Ed program provided by Sylvan Avenue PTA. Students are working hard and excited about the annual Sylvan's Got Talent event, which is next Tuesday, April 4th at 6:30 p.m. in the high school auditorium. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Denton. We appreciate all the information from the school. Dr. Harney?
Thank you very much, Ms. Denton. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. At this time, we'd like to recognize a number of our students for their musical accomplishments. With that, I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Fulton, who's going to bring everybody up.
It's our pleasure to honor our students who participated recently in the Skamia All-County Music Festival. We are so proud of your accomplishments. So what we're going to do is call up by building, group of students, then we'll pose for a picture, and then we'll go to the next building. So this evening, we're going to start with the high school. I'd like to call up Mr. Haas.
Before I call them up, I just want to, from the high school, I want to congratulate all our students, not only in the high school, but throughout the district for all that they've accomplished. So, first student for recognition in the Long Island String Festival is Catherine Alayan. For recognition in the Skamia All-County Music Festival, Lily Carabas. Also in the All-County Music Festival, Logan Cerrone. Next we have All-National Music Festival and the All-County Music Festival, Airly Deutscher. All-County Music Festival, Katie Edwards. All-County Music Festival, Alexa Evers. All-County Music Festival, Harrison Farley. All-County Music Festival, Anna Foreman. Also All-County Music Festival, Lily Foreman. Next we have Charles Hambley, All-County Music Festival.
Congratulations.
Nathaniel Lennon, All-County Music Festival. All-County Music Festival, Sophia Majorana. All-County Music Festival, Francesco Silvestrini. All-County Music Festival, Alexander Balder. All-County Music Festival, Anthony Balder. And recognition for the All-County Music Festival and the All-State Music Festival, Ali Vaitos. Congratulations to our high school students.
You guys want to bring it in, and we'll compress for a picture. We now like to call up Ms. Nicole Cush from the middle school for our middle school musicians.
Okay, I'd like to congratulate all of the students that worked very hard, starting with the Skamia All-County Music Festival, Mason Ash. Skamia All-County Music Festival, Juliana Cirillo. Skamia All-County Music Festival, Michaela Durazmo. All-County Music Festival, William Einert. And also Long Island String Festival, William Einert. Skamia All-County Music Festival, Scarlett Flood Baldessaro, excuse me. All-County Music Festival, Michael Kane. Long Island String Festival, Carson King. And Skamia All-County Music Festival, Carson King.
Where's my hug?
Long Island String Festival, Ray Labarca. Skamia All-County Music Festival, TJ Lynch. All-County Music Festival, Malcolm Merced. All-County Music Festival, Jane Raymond. And All-County Music Festival, Eric Sweeten.
And you can take these back to the building.
Hey, great.
Thank you very much. Yep, everyone coming in for a picture? And to help us with Blueport Elementary, we call up Ms. Tara Faleska.
Good evening, everyone. I am extremely privileged to congratulate the following students. For Skamia All-County Music Festival, Lily Coffey. Not here. Skamia All-County Music Festival, Daniel Harrison. Skamia All-County Music Festival, Jameson Hogan. Long Island String Festival, not mine, but congratulations, Madeline Jensen.
Oh, she's coming up.
Join Blue Point. Everyone is welcome at Blue Point.
Good job, Adeline. Sorry.
Long Island String Festival, Catherine Romer.
Madeline, you don't have to stay up in the picture. We'll get a separate one for you.
Skamia All-County Music Festival, Bray Morrison. Skamia All-County Music Festival, Kurt Smith.
I missed that one, sorry.
Skamia All-County Music Festival, Emma Valentine.
Got filed in there, so. All right, you don't have to stay for the Blue Point picture. We'll get a separate one with you.
We'll bring up high school kids again
Yeah,
and get her.
yeah, we're gonna do that. Stay right there, we're gonna bring the high school kids back. Stay right there. All right, and we're going to call the high school kids back up one more time so we can redo that picture. Our apologies.
Wait, who was up there? You were up there. Go for it. I was a big left. Right? Go back up.
A couple of kids probably left, so.
Mr. Fulton, Dr. Fulton, you get in the picture.
All right, I'll get it.
Yeah.
Come back with. I'd like to call up Miss Elaine Dugan for Sylvan Elementary School.
Hey, good evening. So happy to be here to celebrate with our Sylvan Avenue musicians. And the first award goes to Skamia All-County Music Festival participant Leah Calaruso.
She's got two.
And then we also have Skamia All-County Music Festival goes to Krish Patel.
And Long Island String Festival.
And Krish also received the Long Island String Festival Participant Award. And then we have Skamia All-County Music Festival goes to Jillian Sampson. And the Skamia All-County Music Festival Award also goes to Ronnie Tischler. Nice job, Ronnie.
I'll take the microphone.
Okay.
And pinch it in for Ms. Kerry Van at Academy Street. We'd like to thank Ms. Dugan, but we'll now be announcing our Academy Street students.
Okay, so I spoke with Mrs. Van tonight. She's very sorry she can't be here, and I'm practicing new names. So we're going to start with Skamia All-County Music Festival for Emma Bachek. Skamia All-County Music Festival to Luke Hedstrom. The Long Island String Festival goes to Josh Green, Joshua Green. A little too fast. Skamia All-County Music Festival to Charlotte O'Leary. And Skamia All-County Music Festival to Austin Sepulveda. Congratulations to all of you.
And thank you to everyone again for our wonderful musicians.
Congratulations to all talented students tonight. If the students recognized and their family would like to leave at this time, we completely understand. Thank you for your time, and one more round of applause.
Do I have the,
Yes, it's on.
excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, is it on? And does the, do I have the?
He has the clicker. He said that you guys are sharing.
Yeah, we are, okay.
I was
Okay.
texting Tim. Why was my photo just taken?
I'm sorry?
I was texting on the phone. I don't know if like he took my picture while I was on the phone.
Okay? Now coming up to give us our 7th budget presentation is the one and only Mr. Louis Fronteria.
Good evening. Well, thank you very much. Good evening. I think are you going to change them for me, Dr. Horney? Thank you. Okay, so that's our cover page, and of course, the format is always the same, and here we are at the 7th presentation. Certainly transparent as much as you could possibly be in terms of budget development, without a doubt. So tonight we're going to talk a special presentation by Dr. Horney about staffing and taking a look back and look forward, and of course determining where we are heading with respect to the ultimate budget increase and tax levy increase. And on this agenda, of course, as you can see, special staffing presentation is highlighted, but of course we're going to cover all of the items on this agenda, albeit pretty rapidly, I would think. Next slide, sir. Thank you. Here are, of course, our district goals, something you've become accustomed to seeing at every one of these presentations, and of course it's what our guiding principles, if you will. And our important timeframes, our budget development calendar, as you can see, we've moved down the list. Here we are, March 28th already, and again, covering all our bets. By April 18th, if not sooner, the board will definitely adopt a budget, which we will bring to the voters on May 16th. And on May 2nd will be our budget hearing, which is required by law that every school district in the state has to do. Between the dates of May 2nd and May 9th, every district in state will have to make at least have a budget hearing for the May 16th, 23 budget vote. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Horney to talk a little bit about staffing and the past 10 years.
Thank you, Mr. Fronteria. So one of the things we wanted to add to the presentation tonight was just kind of to review staffing a little bit, so that's what I'm going to do. As we looked at this, we tried to figure out what kind of the purpose of this part of it is. So I started to take a 10-year look at our demographic and enrollment numbers. Obviously, over the last couple of years, we've talked a lot about enrollment. So I wanted to take a look at this a little bit. To provide a 10-year look at our staffing numbers, I want to show you kind of where some things have changed and really where some of the needs have changed, and to provide staffing numbers for predicting for 23-24, along with this over the course of the 10 years, some really nice things that have happened that we'd like to really point out to everyone, and I call them kind of reasons to celebrate. So when we're talking about what we're trying to do for our students, these are kind of the three of the guiding principles for us: to provide all students with opportunities to challenge themselves, to convey high expectations for them, and to provide support for all of our students to succeed. And really the three areas is academically, socially, and emotionally. Guiding principle of the district and the budget. So every year we talk about this, and I know Mr. Frontario has talked about this. You can't look at the budget in a one-year cycle. You really have to try to look at this long-term. So that's really the idea of us taking a look at staffing, which obviously we know is a large part of our budget. So obviously we want to continue to move forward, build a budget around our goals, which is something that Mr. Frontario has kind of always put out there for us. To plan long-term, which I originally just spoke to maintain the financial health of the school district, that is obviously of great importance. Be as transparent and inclusive as possible. As Mr. Frontario said, this is our 7th presentation. I'm not sure of another district that does 7 presentations and all. So, and then obviously we'll follow up on the 18th with one as well. So that will really be number 8 at that time. And then, as always, to stay within our tax levy cap. The ultimate goal is to make sure our revenue, right, which is over here, is going to equal our expenditures by the end of the budget. So what we wanted to do is anytime you're looking at a budget, and especially when it comes to staff, things that you have that are happening is we have a number of challenges that are with us, and they change a little bit from year to year. So foundation, which I'll talk about in a second, and I'll talk about the challenge with the foundation aid. I'll talk about declining enrollment. As I said, I've done, I want to say 3 or 4 different enrollment presentations, probably actually more than that over the last 4 or 5 years. I also like to talk about the changing population, and I'll kind of lead to that. Safety and security is always a challenge as well. Obviously, that is one of the things that are high priority for us. I put next-gen learning standards on here because you remember when it was the Common Core, and then we have the next-gen learning standards, so we're continuously revising our curriculums. And this is really all I'm going to talk to in relevance to COVID, but since then, obviously, we've had challenges in terms of academics, social, and emotional. So you'll see some of that reflected within the budget as well, or what we're going to kind of show you tonight. So foundation aid is really the aid that is most important type to the school district. Now, probably it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, if you read the headlines in the paper, it says, hey, schools got a windfall, or it was record-breaking aid for school districts. That is true for some school districts. If you also went and looked at it, compared all the districts, you would have looked at Bayport, Blue Point. That is not necessarily true for us. We received the minimum, basically, of the 3%, is what we received. So when you're looking at it, foundation aid is distributed to school districts based on a formula. Under the formula, school districts with greater needs get larger allocations of foundation aids. Needs determined using student demographic and district wealth indicators. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this tonight. BPP is considered an average need school district. What I mean by that is, within all districts, they look at your common wealth ratio, and they really say that 1.0 is average, or right in the middle. And we fluctuate right around there, sometimes right below it, a little bit above it. So that's why I said we are really more of an average school district. Foundation aid makes up about 13.9% of our expenditures. And if we're thinking about 23-24, and again, this is where we currently sit, and what I mean by that is the governor's budget doesn't come out until April 1st. That's the due date, so we'll have everything verified. But so far from the initial budget and then the one-house budget, we have received an increase of $339,486, which is the minimum 3%. So if you were reading the paper and looking at the articles and stuff, we are not one of those districts. We are one of the ones who received the minimum. And there are a number of districts in New York State that did, but it's just something to keep in mind. The reason I bring this up is the formula that they use for foundation aid, a lot of the numbers of the demographics or even the census information they're using is from the early 2000s. So that's roughly 20 years ago that they're still looking off this formula. So our Superintendent Association is actually one of those organizations that are continuously questioning on how the foundation aid formula is done. The reason, it will kind of bring us to our next slide here. So we know our enrollment, and I'm not going to really spend any time. So what I started to do is I said I want to look at a 10-year look. So I looked at 2012, 13, then I did it on 5 years. Then I went to 2017, 18, 2023, 2022, 23, which is really a 10-year. And then I said, all right, let's kind of predict what 23, 24 is going to look like next year. So everything that you'll see me do from here on in, these will kind of be the 4 stopgaps that I'm going to kind of take a look at. So this one is, if you're in the back, it's a little bit hard to see, but really, this is what I wanted to take a look at. So this is the 10-year, a look at the school district over 10 years. So this is taking a look at really 2012-13 data. Here's the 5-year midway, right? 2017-18, and then 22-23. The reason I wanted to take a look at this is the district as a whole, as Long Island is changing, okay? Things I'd like to kind of point out to you is everything up here, I didn't randomly pick. These are all the things that are reported to the state. These are their categories, they're their names, so that's what these are. So that's what so people understand that. So when we have to report every year, and you probably have heard about it, a beds day that you do in October, this is the data where they pull from, and this is what some of the items that they are looking at. So if you're looking at it from 2012-13 through 2022-23, you see, one, the district is becoming more diverse. Some things haven't really changed that much, so you'll see that. The second thing that you'll see is, and you'll kind of see it in staffing, there are E&L, English or ESL, English as a second language students, hasn't really changed much. The rules have changed a little bit in terms of how services are provided. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. You're going to see in here that our students with disabilities percentage has risen. So from 14% to 18% if you're looking at, that's this column here. In the middle it was 17, so that's where we are now. You're also going to see the economically disadvantaged. That's this column. That is based off free and reduced lunch. So 10 years ago we were roughly 8%. And now we're at 14, it's actually closer to 15, but that's kind of where we are right now. So you're seeing as a district that things are changing a little bit. And these are things that we have to take into consideration when we are looking at the budget, okay? And what you're going to see along with that is when we start to take a look at staffing numbers, you're going to see what some of those changes have happened. So what we did here for you is, and it's not really, it's a lot of numbers, but really what we did is take a look at our total, this is elementary staff, take a look at 2012-13 staff numbers, and really if you go to this year, projected, okay, so you're going to really see the difference between the two, okay, is about 0.5 of a teacher, or half of a teacher. And these are all the categories that we just kind of place them. AIS is support, art, ELA, at the elementary, we do grade K through 5, pre-K through 5, as you know. So there's an asterisk here because of last year we had, and this is where we were still looking at the year before us, I'm sorry, is you'll see in year 2022-23, the asterisk is 48 because this is the year that we added pre-K. So you notice that. And then we're predicting for next year 47, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But these are all the categories. Then we did this also for secondary. And when you look at this, you're going to say, okay, the secondary is down a little bit from 142 to 134. If you put the two together, it's basically was a difference about of almost 8 teachers between the 10 years, so to speak. It was like 248 to 240 if you were to combine all of them. But really and so you might be saying to yourself, well, we're down a number of students, and that is the only difference in the staff. And the reason I wanted to kind of bring that up, or I wanted to show you, is there's really been a little bit of a change, and I'll kind of share that with you. So numbers that I have here are things that we were able to do to enhance our district. And that's really what I wanted to talk about right now. So if you're thinking about staff, as I said, is our E&L teachers. So those are our teachers for our English as a second language. Back in 2011-12, we had 1 teacher, now we have 3.4. A lot of that is due to a number of years ago, there was a regulation that came out, Part 154, and it was the way in which you had to service students. So that is where you see an increase in that area. You'll see also over the course is, back in 2011-12, I kind of grouped it together where you had guidance and you had social workers together. At that time, we had 7 total. Now we're at 10.4. If you remember in last year's budget, we talked about adding a social worker at each of the elementary buildings. So you're seeing that. So even when Mr. Frontero is talking about this budget, if you remember last year we had talked about where 1 was coming out of the general fund and one was coming out of one of our federal funds, which is now coming into our general fund. So that is something that he had spoken about. We have now a pre-K program, which was 3 teachers. So instead of at this time, which we did plan for years ago, so instead of accessing staff at that time, we said we wanted to kind of build our own pre-K. So now we're able to do pre-K as we're doing that. As you're looking at one of the areas that really grew, we added the STEAM labs in a couple of years. So in there we went from the technology 2.2 full-time teachers to over 3.5 teachers. Our reading teachers went from 5.5 to 6.6. K-5, as I said, went from 48 to 47, but the difference is now we've added 3 pre-K. So really what I wanted to kind of share here is where we started to grow, you saw a lot of it more in the social and in the emotional areas in order to support our students. And that was one of the things. So as I talked about earlier, in terms of our enrollment changing, and as our district, we have changed as well in terms of what we're trying to provide our students. So this is what you're looking at. So I wanted you to take a look at elementary class size, because this is a conversation that people often ask about. So in 2012-13, so what you have is Academy at the top, Blue Point, and Sylvan. So if you look back then, in 2012-13, we were talking about 425 students. Remember, at these times, we had no pre-K, so pre-K was added down here, just so that you could see what we were looking at. But as you're looking at this, you'll see at that point, when I say 18 here, it really means 18 classes, or what we call 18 sections. So if you're thinking about, there's 18 elementary teachers, okay, that were working at Academy. Class size at that time was an average of 24. So every class at that time averaged around 24 students. In 2000, and that's Academy, and then it's similar as you're going down. The only difference is Blue Point doesn't really change, because Blue Point has always had 2 teachers or 2 sections per grade level. They've always had that. So that could fluctuate from 15 in a class to 23 or 24 in a class, okay? Then what you look at, so if you look at Blue Point, they'll always be consistent. So you'll see 12, 12, 12, 12. Their sections are always the same. If you're looking at Sylvan, we had about 400 plus students at that time. Back in 2011-12, there were 18 sections. The average class size in Sylvan at that time was 22 students. So if you just move then to 2017-18, so this is pre-COVID, and the only reason I'm bringing up COVID is that if you remember during COVID, we added sections because we were trying to lower class size so that we could get all the elementary students into class, okay? So at that time in 2017-18, Academy had 16 sections at the time, 21 students. Blue Point, as I said, they were always 12, they were averaging about 19. Sylvan had 17, about 20. This current year, where we are, Academy is down at 306 students, so that's down 119 students over that 10 years. Sections were at 17, and class size now are 18. You've often heard me speak about it, some of these, that we're trying to return to some of those pre-COVID class sizes, because we were carrying a lot of class sizes at 14, 15, okay? Blue Point, as I said, has always been 12. They're averaging, I guess it's 19 at that point. And then Sylvan, this current year, went from 403 to 306, which is 97 students difference. They had 19 sections as you're looking at it. But as you're going from there, you're also taking into consideration for the first time pre-K is in there now. So now pre-K is in there. And then as you're predicting, and they have an average of about 16 students in a class. As we're looking at next year, you're seeing we're predicting that the class was going to go down again a little bit. Academy is remaining same at 17. People have asked about this grade, the 5th grade. People have said, why are you reducing grade 5? It's not a reduction in grade 5. As a matter of fact, that same group of students, which is 22 in one class and will be 23 students in another class, which is not a large class size. It's basically, if you're going back, it's still less than was happening 10 years ago. But when we're looking at that, that is the same class size that they had in 4th grade as well. And that's kind of how it was. So that has just kind of traveled through them. Blue Point, as I said, so now when we're looking at them, the average class size for our academy, even with that 1 grade level, is still around 17. If you're looking at Blue Point, it's right around 17, and Sylvan is right around 17 as well. We are looking to reduce one section at Sylvan, okay? But as you can see what the class sizes are, they're still 19 and below. The only one that we're still kind of taking a look at, this is a predicted number of 34. We don't know if that's going to be accurate. Right now, that's why you'll see that this is 3 sections. Last year, what we did is we waited very long, and we ended up getting more students, and then we split it very late on. This year, we're going to start it with the class, and then if at some point that the numbers don't grow to where we think we'll do, then we'll use that teacher in a different type of support area. That's what we'll do with that. But we wanted to at least plan early to have it, and then it's easier to go the other way. So that's what we want to look at. So this is kind of what we're looking at in terms of staffing or predicting for next year. With that, the reason I wanted to show you this, these are all the things over the last 10 years that we've been able to accomplish within the budget. And that's through the support of the community, the board, and everything that we have put together. There are many, many items, but I just listed a lot of the big ones. So even though our staffing hasn't really changed much, I really kind of want to show you all the enhancements that we've been able to do. Some of it is a result of the bond, but some of it is a lot of it due to planning and long-term planning, which we talk about. So here's we got, oops, sorry about that. So we added 3 pre-K classes to the district. We added a part-time guidance counselor at the elementary level. We expanded our transportation, added support staff, social workers, as I said. If you go back to 2011 and 12, we had 1, now we have 5. Okay? We added, again, to our E&L staff, reading teachers. We increased the number of students attending BOCES. And back in 2012-13, this was a conversation, remember, last year, we had 14 students that were going to a BOCES vocational. This year, we're predicting that there's going to be 42. Obviously, through the bond, we were able to do the turf fields, with spin room, middle school track, tennis courts, new libraries. Academy this year, we did a new playground through a grant. We're able to do, and we're one of the only districts that really do meet all of the phys ed and health. We added K-5 health this year so that all of our students were getting that. Again, taking really, or making better use of our staff, or using them, like I said, in a different way where we can enhance what we're offering our students. Oops. So one of the things we've also been able to do is we implemented the Teachers College Reading and Writing Program. The other thing that we've also been able to do, is I'm going to jump down to here in staff development. One of the things we've been able to do from a district as well, in terms of enhancement, we've been able to do a lot more of our own professional development. For years, we were sending out our professional development, specifically to Teachers College, where we were basically paying them to do all of our professional development. Again, because of things that we were able to do with staffing, we were able to take 2 of our teachers and put them on special assignment, who's had a major impact on our professional development, especially in the Teachers College area at the K-5 level for pre-K. So that is something else we've been able to do. During this time, these 10 years, we've also added a technology, instructional technology person. So that is, again, something else that we've been able to do with our staff. We've also added, obviously through the COVID, which we always had planned to go one-to-one Chromebooks. We at that time didn't necessarily always think we were going down to kindergarten, but that is something that we did do as a result of virtual learning. We redid all of our smart boards, middle school and high school STEAM lab, as I said, which kind of led to an increase in interest for our students to take technology type of courses. I talked about staff development. Over the course of this time, we've also added a lead guard, the expansion of security for daytime hours, door access, the vestibules, we've done all that. We're also going to be doing a security safety presentation, not the next meeting, but the one right after that. So that is going to be happening as well. And just other things you've seen probably in the papers, other things to celebrate. Advanced Regents diploma rate was 80%, which was number 2 in Suffolk County. When I started here 15 years ago, we were writing about 160 AP tests. We're writing over 600 right now. We had 8 AP courses, now we have 22 AP courses. We added the AP capstone, which has a research and a seminar part to it. 60% of our students have taken an AP course. Obviously, we're in high school. We were recognized as a reward school for a number of years, consistently ranked by Newsweek, received the recognition of excellence. We've upgraded our curriculum, which you've heard me talk about on a regular basis. We revised our gifted and talented program, instituted an enrichment program for grades 3, 4, and 5, started a number of partnerships with our local public library, other colleges, business, public entities, which we continue to do. Over the course, we've added over 25 or so new courses at the secondary level. We've added special ed programs, special self-contained classes. Next year, we're looking to add the 812. Next year, we're looking to add back the full-time co-teaching at the elementary level, so things that we've been able to do. We've obviously had also numerous music, art, and athletic achievements. So the reason I wanted to show this all to you tonight is, again, is kind of take a quick look at where we were, where we are right now, and really kind of share with you a number of the things that we were able to do through long-term planning within our budget cycle. And again, it's really just to thank the community and the board for all their support, because with that, we would not be able to do any of this stuff. So I really just wanted to kind of show you that. With that, I'm going to pass it over to, first of all, I'll take any questions on this, and then I'll pass it over to Mr. Fronterio. This way, he'll take you through the budget piece to this. But as I said, this is the first time we've added this to the budget presentation, and we'll do a staffing piece somewhat every single year now, because I do think it's important. I'll take questions from the board first. Nope. All right, I don't know if there's any.
Wait, I'll jump in just so you have something. Thank you. I love numbers, and this all is very easy to follow. So the increase in phys ed at the elementary is because we're now giving the 3 days a week plus the health, correct?
Correct.
I'm just wondering about the decrease in English. Is that just a function of class size?
Yeah, it's really, and when I say, so even our class size is still, so, all right, this is going to bring Brian to the class configurations, but now when the students come together at the middle school and high school, it's much easier to have even class sizes across the board for a content area, so that's where you're seeing it. So now you're saying English classes, because they're not spread out across 3 buildings, middle school, high school, now you can do class sizes of, you can have 6 sections of 20 students. So that's the reason why, where that same number of 150 kids, if they're spread across the elementary level, is maybe 8 sections. So that's the difference. And as enrollment hasn't dropped, we've been kind of paying attention to that. And most of the changes have been through, actually all during my time have been through attrition. And that would hold true for all the core sections, so so that's same where you see some of that. Also remember, some of it is also at the secondary level, student interest driven. So some of those numbers really can change every single year. Okay.
I just want to say thank you for being so transparent with the information and including the history of what's been going on with the district over the course of several years. It's really helpful, and I think that including this in the budget presentation is helpful for everyone, so thank you for adding it, and certainly the points of celebration, because we have a lot to celebrate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Open it up to the public from my part. Questions?
Is there any way that presentation can be a little bit sooner out of, that's first you're talking about?
I don't think we'll be ready. So I had spoken to Mr. Zarconi, who oversees the security and safety, and we picked May 2nd at that time because obviously we have the budget presentation on the 18th, so we wanted to pick the one closest to it. So that's why we had selected that date. I would leave that to the board, but that's kind of what we were eyeing right now, was the May 2nd, because of the budget would have to be approved or adopted, I should say, by the Board of Ed on the 18th, and we wanted to do the one right after that. That's really what we were looking at. So he's also trying to gather as much information as he can. So, but that's kind of where we are. Sure.
About class sizes. So I have a sixth grader at James Wilson Young, and I have a fourth grader at Academy Street Elementary. And I was just looking at the projections for next year for the class size. So she'll be in fifth grade, and the class size for fifth grade at Academy Street looks like it's going to be 23 students.
It'll be 22 and 23, yeah.
Okay, provided no additional students move into the
Correct.
Okay. But I'm just looking at Sylvan and Blue Point Elementary for comparison, and there's 7 less students per class in those 2 schools. As a person who, as a parent who has a 6th grader, I understand how important that preparedness is. I know I've sent you the same exact information, but just so the board understands where I'm coming from. It's so important. That jump to middle school is such a big deal, and I want to make sure that my 5th grader, my rising 5th grader, is going to be as prepared as the rest of the students in the district, and I'm concerned. I'm concerned about that, and I wanted to find out if there was, if this could change. I guess we wouldn't know if more students.
So one of the things I will always look at, and it's the same thing that kind of happened to us last year with the kindergarten class at Sylvan. So it's different but the same. And what I mean by that is when we started to look, when we originally did this last year at this time, okay, now I didn't do a presentation like this, but originally if you looked at last year, and if you were to ask me the numbers at this time last year, we had said Sylvan, we had 2 teachers assigned to the kindergarten for next year. And then it became one of those things where Mrs. Dugan on a regular basis would say, hey, we got 1 more, we've gotten whatever it may be, to the point where we came to somewhere around, probably around August 15th, where we hit a number that we said, all right, we needed to split this to 3. So we have done it later in the past if we've had to do it. As we were looking at it, as they said, the grade level is this. It's still traveling as 2 courses because it's been 2 classes this year. So we didn't, I think when you had asked me, we didn't really reduce 5, right? Grade 5 from 3 to 2. The class has been 2, so we kept it as 2.
It's the only class that's 2 in the entire school.
Yeah, and it's been that way for some time. And what it becomes is, this is where it becomes a tricky, and I don't want to go into all the enrollment stuff I've done in the past, is when you have certain numbers, you make certain decisions as you're looking at this. So we've tried to look at it as classes start to approach that 50 range is usually when we have split them in the past, to add like if it was a 3rd section or something like that.
Two more students at Sylvan, and yet you're splitting it into 3.
Sylvan,
In 5th grade, it's not even just a class size. It's getting used to switching classes, having different teachers for different subjects, which is part of the whole switch from middle school, from elementary to middle. That's my.
no, I understand.
So it's different than kindergarten.
No, I agree. I was just telling you the process, because you asked me, would you ever think about it? I was just telling you we have added later in the process as well. I don't know if the board, that's kind of was the present, what I had for you.
I don't know. The enrollment thing, this is the problem with configuration. It's always been, you can have fluctuations in sizes, but there is.
But, other than that, my only concern would be, do you think class sizes of 23 for 5th grade is?
I do not. If you're asking me do I think a class size of 22 or 23 at 5th grade is a lot, I do not. I think that's a good place to be. It's where we were in some of the areas pre-COVID. And when you had said about Sylvan, I think Sylvan actually had 4 more students. That's why I said they had 49 students. That's why I said close to that 50 number. And it becomes, I know it's a small number of students, but that's kind of what we've been using to guide us a little bit. And we're really trying to return as we're moving the students through the enrollment is changing, that's when we're starting to make some of our change. And that's really what allowed us to do the pre-K this year. We were able to kind of reduce some of the sections last year, and we were able to add pre-K. So that's kind of how we've been doing it.
So I guess at the end of the day, you're going to continue to evaluate the situation with that particular school or class?
Absolutely.
Until right up to school to see whether or not,
Correct.
necessary.
Again, anything can still happen, and as I said, I don't know if Sylvan's right now, where we had kindergarten, if it will remain as 3 classes right now. We just started there this time because last year we had to add it so late. So if that is an area that frees up, then it could be in a supportive area, or it could be looking at another class size as well. That's always an option. But we will look at everything, that I can tell you.
Any other questions from the board?
I just have one question. You probably have said this in the past. What is the max size for the district?
Oh, I want to say, I don't want to quote myself, I want to say at the intermediate level, which is 3 through 5, I want to say it's 25, 26. I don't know if anyone knows it off the top of my head, or if Emily, if you know, and I don't want to put you on the spot. Yeah, but it's higher than these numbers by a few, that I do know. The primary is a little bit lower, and then the intermediate, and then at the secondary, it's based on number of students that a teacher works with on an overall basis. But I can get you that if you want to know. When I sit down, I can get you that. I can look it up. Okay? But it is not near the class size. What's allowable, if that's what you want to use.
If there's no other questions for Dr. Harney, then we'll conclude with the rest of the budget presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn this part over to Mr. Frontero, who's going to walk you through some of the numbers, and we'll kind of go from there.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. So, in any event, in the past couple of budget workshops, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I basically reviewed all of the functional areas in the budget and showed the last year's budget and actual, this year's budget, and then I contrasted that with the proposed budget, both dollar and percentage increase, and then a discussion about what was included in each of those areas. And now here's a summary of that, just in functional area. This is probably similar to how it would look when we have our budget brochure, our budget newsletter going out. The information on the expense side will probably look very similar to this. It's still showing a 3.15% budget to budget, which is where we have been over the past couple of presentations. Nothing has changed yet, but we're still in the process, if you know what I mean. Here it is in functional area summary, again, showing the 3.15% budget to budget increase. We're going from $80,969,342 to $83,523,366, an increase of $2,554,024. The three-part budget, I had to reformat the information still based on a 3.15% budget-to-budget increase, but the three-part format, which is considered to be plain language budgeting that the state dreamt up maybe 20 years ago, this is important, number one, because in the 6-day notice that is going to be going out prior to the vote, it has to show the budget in the three-part format. It is also critical in terms of determining if we were ever to have to go to a contingent budget, I would have to be working from this format to determine how that budget would look. So, and it will also appear it has to appear at least in the budget hearing and in other places so that the public can see it in the plain language three-part format. In terms of our budget that we're currently looking at for next year, it includes everything we know and love about the district, all our staffing, and all of the services and supports that we provide, or everything that goes into our classrooms, materials, supplies, BOCES services, and of course covers our administrative overhead and things like retirement systems, FICA, and the like any big business would have. Special ed services, transportation, our music and arts program, athletics, everything we know. In addition, we have some things that we've added to the budget that are still in this presentation, it's still in the 3.15 budget-to-budget increase. And as you can see, these things that we talked about and have shown over the past couple of weeks, pre-K security, some cyber enhancements to protect our information from being hijacked, Apogee going from the system that we have now, ConnectEd, replacing it with Apogee, which is much more integrated. The social worker, that we have 5 now, but 4 are charged to the general fund, and 1 is in federal. Knowing that that money is going to run out, we're moving that additional position, that 1 position into the general fund, which is what this is all about. We're 2 new clubs at each building we've budgeted for, a behavioral professional as part of our reorganization of some of our special ed services and how we're going to present them next year, an ELL chair, and a science research class, which basically we're working with all of the staff. That's why it shows basically it's no cost, there's no additional cost. We already have it built in terms of how we will have the teacher provide the services. And then middle school and high school tennis court portable bleachers, which was requested. And then the debt service for our new EPC, Energy Performance Contract. This is one thing that had to be built into the budget for next year. Of course, we will be working very closely next year with all of the implementation of the Energy Performance Contract. And there's a good chance that a lot of it will get done in the next school year. In terms of transfer to capital, which is a current line that we have in the budget, at the last presentation, these were shown in very general, and they're still basically very general. But the one thing that's changed is that we've added a little bit more descriptors to it and have added some dollar values. Again, these are not perfect sciences, but this is somewhere about the ballpark of where we stand. So we talked about concrete upgrades, fencing upgrades, Academy Street softball field, maintenance barn at the high school, things that we have been talking about for a while. Obviously, if you do the math and listen pretty quickly, you can see that there's, between this slide and the next slide, is a lot higher than 500,000. What this does is listing them in this manner until we decide to take anything off would allow us to move forward with any one of these projects. Obviously not spending more than $500,000, no matter how you slice it, but we could, pick and choose, but we need voter approval in order to move forward with number 1, the transfer, and then the projects themselves. And we try to keep it as very general as possible, because if you're talking about, say, district-wide concrete, that can be done in any building, but if you say a specific building, then you can only do that particular renovation at that particular building. But some of them are included here. And as you can see, some discussions came up at the last meeting about, say, the press box, if you will. This is information we got from our architect, and anything we do with when you talk to the architects and what they're seeing out there and what the state ed requires people to do when they do any kind of structure, it's considerable and it jumps off the page, but it's not likely what that was had in mind. I think we were talking about some plywood put together or something like that and painted blue. But in any event, we said the edict was to try to get information for you about what the numbers look like, and that's exactly what that is here, and so forth. In terms of this slide, what it shows is sort of our history. The number in the blue that is in parentheses is the tax levy cap, the calculated cap, and the number in red is the actual tax levy that we have actually levied. In many cases, in the past couple of years, have been under the cap. We could have raised, for example, in 21-22, we could have raised taxes by 4.22%, been within the cap. We chose not to do that. Between last year, though, and this year, that is over a little over $1 million that we could have raised in tax levy that we did not raise in tax levy. Because when I did the math today, the changes between the 2 years that we could have, 1 year is 300,000, and in 21-22 is 600. So it's just slightly over $1 million. And obviously, we have to make that decision at some point where we will stand. None of this is sealed in cement yet. So currently, our tax levy cap is at 3.94. Obviously could be lower depending upon what we do. The same thing with our budget at 3.15, although tight, and I have done a lot of cutting already, but if we decided that we wanted to make a move in a lower direction, we would see how far we could get. In terms of our averages, again, they are very reasonable given over time in terms of the changes, cost of living and the like, and it always costs more money to do business on Long Island. But here we are. I think we've pretty impressive in terms of controlling costs, both on the budget-to-budget side and on the tax levy side. This is some information that I got from my colleagues that we've been sharing about the column all the way on the right, tax levy limit. Those are the calculated tax levy limits for the schools that are listed as school districts. You can see ours is 3.94. Other districts are higher or lower depending upon if they had any capital exclusions or things like that that would help them to go above a certain level. As you can see, it's a 2% tax cap, but you almost don't see 2% anywhere, except in a few districts. And the middle column is what they're claiming they will probably increase the levy to. Some will be at the tax cap, some will be below, none are going to go above, at least not in this cohort. And obviously we're going to have to decide at some point soon what our tax levy limit will be. Our tax levy increase will be whether it will be at the limit or something below the limit. This is an example of what I showed of a 3.44% tax levy, obviously below the cap a little bit, and I've used state aid and all other revenues and appropriated fund balance and transfer to reserves to make sure we're in balance. In the next version, at the 3.94%, which is at the cap, as you can see, I just made some changes to the other items, where if I raise the tax levy, I would reduce some of the all other revenues and appropriated fund balance again, because we have to have the exact same number on the expense side that we have on the revenue side. And again, this is based on a 3.15% budget-to-budget increase. So at some point, and hopefully that'll be soon, we'll determine what our budget-to-budget increase will be and what our tax levy increase should look like. Obviously, by April 18th, we will have to adopt the budget. That's the latest that we could adopt the budget in the state of New York. So we're right there at the cusp. April 18th, again, final overview of a proposed 23-24 budget, answering any questions, making sure that we've got covered all our bets, which I think by now we pretty much have. We just need to sort of get a sense of where the numbers should be. Questions?
Tim?
Yeah, I just want to kind of do a couple of highlights first. So one, just Mr. Rowan, I was able to find the information, just so you're aware, from a class size, pre-K is 12 to 25, kindergarten 12 to 25, grades 1 through 3, 20 to 25, and then grades 4 to 5, 23 to 27. All right, and then at the secondary level, again, it's based on the number of students that are really within a teacher's course load. Okay, so you had that. Just a couple of highlights here as Mr. Frontera had gone through the budget. So just a couple of points really where that came out from the last board meeting. One was, if you remember, we were able to recognize a number of students for their accomplishments, and they're going to be going off to Arkansas in May, which is very exciting. So we did go back. We went to our instructional council, which I had alluded to the last time, that we do have a process when we're looking at curriculum or instruction, so that we are going to be able to add a science research course. It is a course that's actually, so people are aware, that has been in our course catalog for years. We've tried to run that course on 2 or 3 different occasions, where it would maybe last a year or 2, and we've had different staff members try it, and we've tried to look at it differently. So we are absolutely open to taking a look at it again. And also from a piece that we've had in the past, where we did have a robotics club. If you wanted to, just from a little bit history, early on we had a number of students who did have an interest at the high school level in a robotics club, and then just through various work we were able to partner with SAVO. We actually had one of our staff members who we supported that part of the club who went there and then worked with a number of students, and we kind of did similar to how we do the swimming team right now. So we've had that for a number of years. So both of those we currently have within our contracts and within what we've done in the past. So we are going to take a look at it. At some point, we may take a look at a name change for the science research class. As you had heard last week, the class is not going to be specifically about robotics or Legos. It's really going to be, and we're going to leave that to the teachers to really take a look at and what they would want to focus on, but we will be able to do it as a every other day class that will be open to the high school. So really after this is when the high school and the middle school staff will take a look and see what kind of interest there are from students. And then in the same breath, we do have the robotics club already built in if there was interest in it. Saying that you do not have to do one to be part of the other. As a matter of fact, when we were looking at the research piece, we want it to be as really inclusive as possible. So that's why it's not going to be honed in on just one topic area or one area of instruction. So that's what we're looking at as we're going forward. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you. The second thing I wanted to share with you is we've been asked about pre-K on a regular basis, and I did a lot of homework in terms of pre-K. My suggestion would be, and again, I wouldn't do anything until after April 1st and we get the governor's budget, because then we'll find out really about the additional aid that is really just used for pre-K. So it's one of those things, as I said, we've alluded to in the past, is we're giving $5,400 per student, but I will tell you that does not, though we plan for it internally, that $5,400 does not cover what a current classroom costs within the Bayport Blue Point School District. When we are contracting with a CBO, as we did with Pat Med YMCA, that is truly the $5,400. In speaking to them, it looks like if our money stays the way that we're predicting, again, we'll know after April 1st, we may be able to add an additional 8 to 10 students over at the CBO. So that is something that we will look at. So that is something else as going forward. That I know that was a question that had come up the last time. So I just really wanted to share those two things with you as highlights that I know Mr. Frontero spoke about, but I wanted to give you a little bit of the homework that we had done behind the scenes.
Thank you, Dr. Harney. Any trustee questions for Dr. Harney or Mr. Frontero?
I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Honey and Dr. Fulton and Mr. Hassan, the instructional council, for getting on the science research class so quickly. That's a fantastic turnaround and excellent news to hear. I just wanted to make sure, so it's only one section every other day, right? It wouldn't be like, two sections in some cases.
What we're envisioning right now is it would be one section right now. And how it was originally in our course catalog, it was done as a Science Research 1 and a Science Research 2. We were kind of looking at originally years ago as a 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're going to go back and really take a look at that, but we'll need a little time to do that. So it'll be kind of just a class now, since we haven't had it in years. If anyone who had an interest in it, we would open it up to them. And it'll be an every other day class, as you had mentioned, and it'll look, most likely will be one section that way. That's what it'll be.
So just a question about the scheduling of that course. If I'm a parent right now of an 8th grader, rising 9th grader, or of a current high school student, if my child is interested in taking that class, other than, obviously, we're discussing it tonight, but how will the students be made aware that that's an option for them, and what would be the time frame for them to add that class to their schedule for next year?
Yeah, so probably it'll be a short turnaround because we do want to start building the master schedule. But saying that now, really what I had spoken to, I want to say at least Mr. Haas a couple of days ago and said that it looked like we were going to be a go with this so that he can start to take a look at the population of students. And I would have to do the same thing at the middle school and specifically the 8th grade. But we didn't want to do really anything until after tonight so we could bring you the information as we were going forward. So I would say between now and the spring break and then right after the spring break, because we're hoping in May to start building the master schedules.
Any other questions from trustees?
I have one more thing. I did want to just make an effort to recognize Mr. Frontario and the admin team that this is presentation number 7 about the budget. I don't know if the folks at home or in the community know, but this is not the typical practice of every district. There are many districts who are on budget presentation number 1 or 2 at this point in the process. So I just want to thank the team for really making an effort to make sure that we as a board and that the community are really aware of where the tax dollars are spent and where the investments are made in the future of the district. And in terms of that, I wanted to just kind of circle back to that transfer to capital, the 500,000 number.
Just going to do that.
Well, I'll let you do that first then, Dr. Harney, and then maybe I'll ask my question
as I
after.
said, so one of the other tests that we were given besides looking at the science research in the pre-K was taking a look at the transfer to capital. And if you remember at the last meeting, Mr. Frontario had a number of items up there, but we didn't necessarily have the cost attached to it. So we went back and looked at it, and really we took everything that was talked about that night, and we kind of put something together. And when it came to the press box, which I know was brought up at the last time, we did want to bring it forward, and we had to have a BBS take a look at it, our architecture, because anytime you're looking at enclosing something or something at a space where individuals are going to be, you would end up having to go through state ed. So obviously that one, when you're looking at it, has a pretty hefty price tag going into it. And if we need, I have Mr. Bortzfield coming here tonight if we need to explain anything, but honestly, where I am in terms of this, I wouldn't even really recommend to go forward with that. I'd rather focus on the items that are more of necessity right now as we're looking at it. Also, where we are currently right now is we've talked about a capital reserve in the past for a number of years, and it is something that I'd like to revisit. Though, if you remember when we had talked about it in the past, is we were at the end of our 5-year condition survey, which every district has to do on a 5-year basis. So Mr. Bortzfield is working on that currently. And really to do the capital reserve, you want to be able to identify projects that you'd like to spend the money for, right? And that would need voter approval. So we are not there yet. And the reason being is it doesn't make sense making a recommendation about a capital reserve off of an old condition survey. We have to provide it by, I want to say December of 23, if I'm right, Mr. Bortzfield. By the end of the year, we have to provide it. So he's working with the architecture, which we're going to end up doing a presentation for the board and the community anyway. That will allow us, if we do at some point do a capital reserve, then we can kind of really item the items in terms of importance to less important. So I would say from where we are from the transfer to capital, there are those items in there that we should look at for next year. And then going forward in terms of a capital reserve, I think that should really become, when we're doing goals this summer, should be a goal of ours for next year, where we're able to provide you with more information for that and specific projects that we'd want to highlight in the next couple of years. That would be my suggestion. And I don't know if that answered your questions coming, but that was what I would do.
It did answer my question. I was going to ask about recommendations just because there are items on this list that have the word need in them, and I feel like those really should be the priority. And when we're talking about things like curbs and sidewalks, that's a safety issue. When we talk about ramps for ADA compliance, gutters, asbestos abatement, these are things that are maybe not the most flashy items in a budget, but they're the things that really need to get done and will have a greater impact across the district for a larger number of students and the community as a whole. So those are really the projects for me that I would prefer to see the district focus on.
Great, and even how we have them here, they weren't in order of importance either, just so you know. They were just kind of put out there so people could see them. And the reason we just wanted to list them is because, as you know, the cost of everything is rising. So we just wanted to have a list so that we can kind of say, all right, these are the projects we need to look at. But again, one of them, when we actually go to do it, may turn out to be more, so we might have to do less than we're predicting here, but that's what we at least want to put the information out there.
Right, we can never exceed that $500,000 mark.
500 is the 500, and that's it. So we have to stay under that.
Any other questions from trustees? Any questions from the community?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask about the preschool thing again. If you're saying that it's possible to maybe add 8 to 10 students, how will that go? Is that going right off the lottery list that you're?
Yeah, so what would happen is when Dr. Fulton had done the initial lottery, he created a waiting list, and I believe there was roughly 20-something families that are on it. We would go to them. Really, the selection wouldn't be about Sylvan or anything else. It would truly be for the CBO now. And we'd ask them by number order how they were pulled out, how he pulled them out, if they were interested in a slot. But again, we will not do that until April some point, until we get confirmation about the funding for pre-K from the state.
And just to confirm, they're voting on that April 1st, correct?
Well, so what's supposed to happen is we're supposed to be provided a state budget by April 1st.
Right.
But it has been late in the past. So I keep using April 1st, but who knows?
Questions from the community about the budget presentation? Not hearing any? I do want to just point out that, just to really drive home the fact that the transfer to capital items, those are not things that are going necessarily into the budget. Those were really just identifiable needs coupled with board and other administrative asks to look into. So just want to make sure that nobody in the community thinks that we're going to be essentially purchasing those. A lot of other work would have to go into deciding what on that list would ever get purchased in the future. I want to thank Mr. Frontario and Dr. Harney. A tremendous amount of work. We're coming down to the end of this season. They start the budget process literally as soon as the school year starts every year. And we start ramping up and doing these presentations in December. And there's a lot of work behind the scenes with different committees and with a lot of meetings with the employees that a ton of work goes into these presentations. So I just want to thank you. I understand the process, and it's a lot of work. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. The only thing, or really the only question I have for the board, and I'll make my recommendation as well, is obviously, even in this presentation, Mr. Frontario had given you a couple of scenarios between, one, I want to see if you had any other questions in terms of taking a look at the tax levy, right? We know the budget is around 3.15. The tax levies that were presented to you tonight were 3.44 and 3.94. Let me make 2 points on that. If you're looking at a 3.44, you're looking at taking more money from the reserves, which is not necessarily would be my recommendation right now, especially because last year we had to take some money from the reserves because we fell in the red a little bit, and because of the rising cost of items, that would make me a little weary. The second piece is, so then if you go at the 394, it is us pulling a little bit less money from the reserves. Also, in the last 2 years, and again, it's one of those things we've been able to do, if you're looking at the 2021-22 budget year, where we went out at 294 when we could have gone out at 422, that was close, and I'm saying close to about $700,000 that was not accounted for. This year, when we did it at 349 as opposed to the 4.05, it was just over the 300,000. So that's where Mr. Frontario came up with that number of around $1 million, which as you're going forward, we've talked about is you can never make that up. So we were able to do that. This year going forward, as much as I would like to make that recommendation, again, I'm a little cautious because I don't necessarily want to pull more money from the reserves. And also at the same point, in terms of leaving more money out there, I would be a little bit concerned of that right now. And again, especially because we were a little bit in the red last year. So I would at that time say, I think we should look at the 394 going forward, but I'm open to, if you were going to look to change it, and I don't really advise this either, is if you really want us to try to get the 344, my suggestion would be then to try to cut about $300,000 out of the budget, which we tried to look at. It would be, we're going to be looking at something that, I'm not exactly sure what it would be, but we've got it as tight as we can, we believe, because I wouldn't want to go to 344 and just pull money from reserves. I'd rather lower what our overall budget would be if we were to choose to go in that direction. So I just wanted to put out that for conversations, people's thoughts. I'll leave it open to you.
Would we be able to, Dr. Harney, as a suggestion, instead of trying to make a decision now, could we look at different courses of action or scenarios, maybe involving, doesn't have to be a 394 versus 344, could be a split in between. It doesn't need to, or combined with a combination of maybe some cuts to the expenditure, but if you can maybe provide some course of action looking at those scenarios, a few of them, either 394, cut nothing, somewhere in the middle, cut a little of something, and what the different low-hanging fruit would be, if there is any, and 344, and what we'd have to take out of next year's expenditure budget to balance that out. If you could provide those scenarios at the next meeting, I think we would have the ability to make a more informed decision. Nobody wants to raise taxes, but nobody wants to cut programs either. So we got to figure out a balance between the two.
That is absolutely no problem. The only thing I guess it's an ask or question, is that our next meeting is the budget adoption. So we can bring you those scenarios here. We're just going to have to do the resolution here at that time, which is fine. We can do that. We'd have to do it that way. But no matter, unless we added another meeting and we tried to do something before, otherwise I can bring you 2 or 3 scenarios. We're not talking about a ton, I don't think. So I think we could do that for you. Have it for the 18th. And then we would, just as I said, the resolution would have to be written that night, with the numbers. That we could do. Yeah, and so we can do that if that works for everybody.
Does the board agree with that?
Yeah, I just also wanted to point out that we may have the state aid numbers at that point, which could change the conversation a little bit.
And that's very true. We might get $300,000 extra in aid, right? Which that would change part of the conversation. Then I could tell you, all right, we could do the 344 right now, and we're not cutting anything because we've added to our revenue. It's a very good point.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items the board would like to move from the consent to the regular agenda? Not hearing anything, so can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items G, H, I, J, and K? Motion by Ms. Conlon, second by Ms. Pignataro. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to the regular agenda. The board would like to gratefully accept a thoughtful and generous donation of $250 from an anonymous resident to help a family or families that are having difficulty paying for their student lunch debts. Any discussions? All in favor?
You need a motion.
For,
Somebody needs to do a motion first.
I don't know if you do.
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept. Ms. Cerrone, motion, seconded by Mr. Krug. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6. The board would like to gratefully accept another thoughtful and generous donation from a Bayport Blue Point School District supporter with a request to remain anonymous. This donation would cover the difference between the original budgeted high school wellness room versus the actual final cost. Dr. Harney, if you can expand on the difference?
Yes, so it was about a year ago, it was actually last February, that I had an organization reach out to myself who really wanted to just help the district with really all the sadness that we had gone through last year and the tragic deaths of some of our students had reached out. And one of the things is they really wanted to be part of really kind of helping the district out. So really over the course of the last year, we've been talking about I'll call it we're going to change the name, but it's some type of wellness center at the high school, and we're looking to do it kind of an indoor-outdoor piece for our students and for our staff here at the high school. And we're eventually going to open it up where we can use it within the community as well. So if you remember last year through the budget, the board had and the community supported $250,000. The price tag of that was always much higher, but we also want to contribute to it as well. The price tag, the indoor-outdoor, it's probably somewhere around, right now actually we have sent everything to the state and we're waiting on it, is about $850,000. We probably have about $300,000 in donations right now, plus really what the school district is kicking in. So this group wants to make sure that the project does come to fruition. So that's where this comes from, that we are looking for other donations as well to help subsidize it. But whatever else we do not receive, this group is going to cover the end to the project. So I cannot thank them enough. I promised them that I would keep them anonymous, so I'm going to do that. But if they are listening, they absolutely know how much we appreciate it as a school district. And it's going to make a huge difference. So I just want to thank them. So really, that's the piece.
Can I get a motion to accept the donation?
So moved. Second.
Motion, Ms. Conley, second, Ms. Pignataro. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. Dr. Hardy, please confer the tremendous gratitude that we have to this supporter on the generosity towards this monumental project. Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next policy. Can I have a motion to approve a second reading of policy 4321.2, pre-referral approach and interventions, 4321.3, allocation of space for special education student, 4321.5, confidentiality and access to individualized education programs, individualized education services programs and services plans, 4321.6, availability of alternate format instructional materials for students with disabilities, 4321.7, district and statewide assessments of students with disabilities, 4321.8, impartial hearing officer appointment, compensation, and cancellation. Ms. Salone, followed Ms. Collin. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to open up the podium for final community members with new business. If anyone has anything, any other questions to ask? Any trustee new business? Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
So, yeah, second.
Ms. Coleman, motion, second by Mr. Krug. All in favor? Aye. Have a good night, everyone.
I can't use it, but it's okay. Good job.